Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Monday, Makeover Monday. It's a special day of the week where we sort of reflect upon the person we want to become. It's very timely with what we're talking about, right? In the Bhagavatam, Maharaj Cricket is just leaving his body. And, there's a devotee recently, me and Kaustubha have just realized this. There's a young devotee. I think she was only like 36 or something, and she just recently passed away.
Like yesterday passed away.
Yeah. Like her name was Syamali. And I can't, I don't know her. I have because I just saw this morning, because I was breaking, if you want to know the honest truth, I was breaking my Makeover Monday, because not to be online at all. And of course, I was on Facebook. I know Amy Steller's giving me the dirty look. I broke it. I opened it. All right. I had a long weekend of teacher training. I was exhausted, and I hit the triple snooze. You know what? I'm really congested in my chest.
You're making up excuses now.
All right, I'm making
I'm here for the rationalization right now. I'm tired. I'm good. Some reason, because you have some congestion, you can break your
That's
thing.
why I was on Facebook, because I have congestion. I have these allergies that wake me up in the middle of the night. It's like It's like a chorus of young girls singing, like, and it's like wakes me up. And I was like, where are those children? And it's like my chest is speaking to me. And then I've got some like, I think my cat died. This cat that I love. Yeah, Mare Apollo, I think, died.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
I know, it's like devastating. My family is like,
Why do you think that?
You know what? He was acting really crazy. I think he got rabies.
Okay, let's hold this for another show, because I don't think
I researched rabies.
Yeah.
I researched rabies. I think he got rabies, and we haven't seen him now in 2 days since.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like really.
Apollo will be in our prayers then.
Apollo's a special cat. Ate lots of prasad. Saw the deities, but we raised him since like a little. He was like my favorite cat.
He
I've
may
ever
come
had.
back. Don't jump to conclusions here.
I don't know.
Apollo may wander in at any minute now.
I mean, anyway, I'll keep you posted.
Okay,
Anyway,
so it's been a tough day.
It's been a tough morning, okay? And so off my back, I was on Facebook for 30 seconds and I saw someone died.
Yeah.
And the person supposedly lived a very auspicious life. She was born in a devotee family, and she was initiated by Indrajumna Swami. And then Indrajumna Swami showed up, I think, when she was leaving her body, was chanting with her. She was surrounded by her friends and her family. Her father wrote her this beautiful poem. Oh, my God. How are we supposed to live in this world when people we love die? How are we supposed to live?
Well, that I was also following that, because not that I ever met her either, but I've had some contact with her husband,
just a little back and forth, some emails here and there about different things. He's a graphic artist. And sometimes we go back and forth about stuff
Are
the
they
Bhakti
from
Center.
Are they from the U.S.?
Yeah, I think she grew up in San Diego,
Oh, wow.
if, in a devotee family. He's American. And then, some months back, maybe it was even just a month or so. I don't know. I don't remember exactly, but some people from her community, they were both living in Alachua, Florida, which is like this huge Bhakti yoga community, like the largest in America. And people from that community, they started, what are those things called, where you raise some funds online?
Yeah.
One of those websites where you give donations.
Donate.
And they mentioned that she was passing away, that she was this very special person, that her family, was going to be struggling financially, because her husband just had to drop everything to care for her because she had cancer and she
Sure.
really needed full-time care. So the community was just kind of rallying around them out of affection for them, to see if people could pitch in. And to be honest, I saw, photography is an interesting thing. Sometimes photography lies, and sometimes photography reveals truth in ways that nothing else can. And honestly, just looking at the photograph of her, I felt like I knew her. I just felt like you can't just fake that kind of devotional purity or something like that. I felt that.
If you want to
And
check out the website, they made like a memorial website. It's shamalidasi.com. It's
you,
SYAMALIDASI.com.
I wanted to read some from that quick if I could. And this is just like, I could just sense what a special person she is. And now that she's passed away, just people are just building up to it, actually. Her husband said, if anyone, we're coming close now, we're in the final hours, if anyone would like to share any prayers. And just there was an outpouring of all kinds of prayers, from written prayers to spoken prayers to people doing kirtan, to people singing songs. Everyone's breaking out the guitar and
Is
singing
that on
songs.
the website?
I saw that on Facebook. I'd imagine they'll probably be
Okay.
posting it to that website. But this was something written by a friend of hers that it apparently was like a roommate of hers in college. This person wasn't like a Bhakti-yogi. This was just a person that she met in college. But I think it reveals the kind of the way that she lived and what she embodied, and how anybody, whether they knew anything about bhakti or anything about yoga or anything, could feel the results of that person's practice.
Mm.
And so this person, her name is Laura. She writes, when I heard the news, I just couldn't believe it. You're so young, and no one deserves this. We haven't spoken in a long time, but I want you to know how much your friendship meant to me. When I first got to London for study abroad, I was terrified, lonely, and lacking confidence in myself. You immediately welcomed me and made me feel at home, even though you were further from home than I was. I had never met a Krishna-conscious person before, and as you educated me about your beliefs, I could see the peace and comfort your faith gave you. You radiated joy, contentment, and it was impossible to feel down or unmotivated around you. You were also whip smart and incredibly funny, but always, always unfailingly kind. We bonded over being vegetarian and traveled the UK and London streets in search of vegetarian food, which was much harder to find back then. I have such good memories of you teaching me how to cook proper vegetarian meals in our noisy dorm kitchen. I still cook some of those same recipes today, and I think of you always. That year in London changed my life, and it wouldn't have turned out that way without your warmth, generosity, and support. I've read the Facebook messages from your friends and family, and I'm touched by how loved you are. Shamali, you were and are and will always be a force of goodness. I wish you my whole heart for blessings to you and your family. But that's someone who's embodying bhakti, right? This person didn't share their same religious beliefs.
Yeah.
Was unfamiliar with their culture and their background, but felt the results of that practice in the terms of this person's kindness, in the terms of this person always being uplifting, always being positive, always being, like, as she was writing there, or, it was impossible to be down around, to feel down or feel unmotivated, to be, to be covered by illusion and just, lost in this world. In this person's presence, you couldn't feel that way. And it was just confirming to me when I saw that photograph. I said, this person is, I could feel it. But let's read today's verses, because they're talking about how Maharaj Pariksit is preparing for death, and I think we can come back to the story of this beautiful soul, Syamali, and share some of the connections.
What a Monday. Good morning. It's, yeah. When devotees leave their body, it's always like such mixed emotions, because it's very auspicious. The way she, like, you couldn't have made it any more perfect. Surrounded by loving people who are caring, who are chanting with her, who are appreciating her. I think the real loss is for the people who are connected with them. And I guess it's always a dig into my, it's like Makeover Monday. It's like Makeover Monday. It's like when someone dies like that, you start thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? That could have been me. And that's like the sobriety of death of someone you love or someone that's close to you. You get like sober for like a day or 2 days. And then back to Maya. Back to like, my spiritual life is, I'm serious about my spiritual life, but and that death knell, like that bell that hits, like, oh my gosh. It just shakes you up for a few days. And sort of like just being on her Facebook page and on that website is just making me like analyze my own life. And
Yeah, and
I guess that's what we do every day. But when you hear about Maharaj Pariksit doing it, it's sort of like, it's almost like this mythological story of ancient times. And when it becomes real like this, it's like when you have to put all this stuff into practice.
That, to me, that's what's so inspiring. Is here's a person that grew up reading these books, meditating on the lessons from them, and who was able to embody them, and embody them in such a way. It wasn't just a theory. It wasn't just, this is my religion and this is my faith, but it doesn't transform me, my behavior, my qualities. But it, you can see she embodied it. She embodied that spirituality in such a way that everyone could feel it and recognize it. And this was just one letter that I read, but there's an outpouring of this kind of thing. In one sense, you can say, like, I've never met her before. And I say this not, I say this not to minimize her in any way, but like, she wasn't like a big famous, I know, we know a lot of people that are, make a big, who become in a sense famous for their service or for their devotion or something. And she was a person that, I don't think was so well known in the devotional community, but well loved by everyone that knew her. And touched, and then when someone like this passes away or is about to pass away, you can see just how many lives that person really touched.
Yeah.
How they really became an instrument of divine love in their life. So we don't have to become these huge spiritual figures to be a success in this life. But I think it was Mother Teresa that said, we may not be able to do great things, but we can do small things with great love. Anyone can do that, And, this woman was a teacher. Her students and the parents of her students are pouring out their love and appreciation for how they touched their lives. And it seems like everybody that met her, it seems like she was one of these people that no one could hold any resentment towards, that everyone had to feel like, oh, what a nice and special person, what a kind and giving person, what a uplifting person. So I was, tearing up a little bit just kind of reading all this stuff. I was really impressed with her and her life.
All right, now I gotta rethink my Makeover Monday now. I gotta like turn it up a notch.
Okay.
I need just like a life makeover.
We all do. Okay, shall we read?
Yeah, let's read. Let's start with our, what do you say we start with our secret invocation mantras? Narayanam namaskritya naram shaiva narottamam devam saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesh vabadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. You know, I always read that, or I close my eyes and say it, but this is the first time I actually opened my eyes, looked at everybody is like a deep prayer here on Zoom. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, which I'm realizing there's a lot. We had like 12,000, 13, what was it, Kaustubha? 12,000 downloads.
12,700 something.
So out of that, there's, you get like 100 people, 91 people today listening on Zoom regularly. So I forget there's 13,000 people out there. But today they're all like in meditation with their head dropped and their hands in prayer. It was very beautiful to see that. Okay, so we're going to we read text 7 the other day. This is Canto 1, chapter 19, text 7. What's the name of this chapter?
The appearance of Shukadev Goswami.
Okay. So I'm going to read text 7, even though we read it the other day, just to get us
So, the Purana had just received the news that he's been cursed to die.
Right. Thus the king, the worthy descendant of the Pandavas, decided once and for all, and sat on the Ganges bank to fast until death, and give himself up to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who alone is able to award liberation. So freeing himself from all kinds of associations and attachments, he accepted the vows of a sage. Text 8. At that time, all the great minds and thinkers, accompanied by their disciples and sages, who could verily sanctify a place of pilgrimage, just by their presence, arrived there on the plea of making a pilgrim's journey. So it's very, very auspicious, auspicious way to die, leave their body, and then all of a sudden these sages show up. It was like this weekend, we had a very auspicious celebration. It was our graduation for our teacher trainees. And it was Kaustubha was there, and then all these Zoomers came out of the woodwork and showed up, and then Gauravani contacted me, said, "Hey, I'm not far by. Can I stop by?" I said, "Perfect timing. We're having a graduation." It was such an incredible. You can't arrange this type of stuff. It's just like sort of like spiritual like alignment.
Yeah.
Text 9 and 10. So from different parts of the universe, there arrived great sages like Atri.
Atri?
I don't know what Atri.
Atri's
Shavana.
important.
Atri, yeah, he's around. I can't.
Well, so many stem from him, right? Or I'm thinking Angira, actually. Yeah.
Chavana, that's where they make Chavanprash from.
Chavanprash.
Famous
Great.
Ayurvedic. What is it?
Health.
Tonic.
Tonic, yeah.
Health gel. Sharadvan, I don't know who that is. Aristanemi, Brigu we know. He's the astrologer, mystical. Vashista, we know from Vashistasana. Parashara, he is Vyasadev's father.
Yeah.
And he created the Vedic astrology. Vishwamitra, we know him from the Ramayana and from yoga poses. Yeah. Angira, I don't know Angira.
Yeah, so many come from Angira, like in the Bhagavatam, like the whole dynasties, and it all stems through him.
Parshuram is like an avatar. Uttaya, Indra Pramada, Idmavahu, Metatiti, Devala, Arstishain, Bardvaj, another yoga pose, Gotama, Pipalada, Maitreya, Orva, Kavash, Kumbhayoni, Dvaipayana, and the great personality, Narada.
Dvaipayana, that's Vyasadeva.
That's Vyasadeva. So he's saying he arrived. I guess he's speaking in a third person now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Sutta is describing this, so.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So anyway, So here he is at the time of death, and these sages came out of nowhere. There were also many
You
other.
know what I think too when I hear this, and I think of this Syamali again. You know that it's this COVID time, so normally like someone like that probably would have in the room had a crowded room, particularly because she was in this devotional community. Like she probably would have passed away in a room crowded with people doing kirtan. But her family was there with her. But her guru, you brought up Indradyumna Swami. Indradyumna Swami is someone that we would like to sometime have on the show sometime soon.
He's wonderful.
You know, when we're going down this list of names of sages, like Narada was the last one mentioned, right? And when you hear about what's Narada's life, he travels, he does kirtan. He's just kind, right? He's just kind of like
What he does.
a free messenger of bhakti, not tied down by any kind of family responsibilities, you know, but just kind of like his life is just to travel, keep moving, and keep inspiring people through kirtan, through bhakti. And, you know, when I think of all the people I've known in my life, you know, I don't know if I know anyone that embodies that mood more than Indradyumna Swami. You know, that here's a you know, man, you know, who his entire life is just moving around. It's a life of adventure.
His life of adventure.
Dedicated, you know, dedicated to serving the sages, dedicated to bringing kirtan and bringing bhakti like all around the world, and he just doesn't stop. And he's like a glowing, beautiful man, you know, just like
it's a beautiful man.
yeah, just a beautiful,
Like
beautiful
anything,
soul.
he embraced my entire family last time we were with him and invited us into his. Where he was staying right next to us at the Govardhan Eco Village, so every morning he would have us all come in there and do his worship with him, and he trained my son, gave my son a deity. You know what? I'm going to take this time, if you don't mind, just to tell. It's the inspiration of, you know, sometimes you get this like, Kaustubha was like the knife. Remember the story of the knife? Kaustubha got stabbed, and he had this sort of a wake up call. What am I doing here? Indradyumna Swami's wake up call was quite fascinating. He grew up in a very sort of tight knit community in Northern California. I'm paraphrasing. He told me the story, but I'm paraphrasing, but so I might get some details wrong. But tight knit community in Northern California with all these friends. They all grew up together. A gang of friends that grew up together from childhood, from young childhood to junior high school to high school, and they were all on the high school football team. Him and all his best friends. Right. And his best friends got together, and they ended up winning something like the state championship or a big football title. And it was right at the time of Vietnam. So they said, you know what? Let's just all together as friends go to Vietnam. And they sent them down.
They all joined the Marines.
They all, yeah. And so in basic training, they were getting ready to get shipped out overseas. And they picked him out and they said, we're going to keep you and train you as a sniper.
Yeah. So like his entire football team and all his friends went together, but they kept him back, right? Because he had this special skill, and they wanted to train him further in that.
And so very soon, they all died together.
Not very soon, practically immediately. Practically immediately, they were all killed in one battle, like every single one of them.
And he was devastated. And it just threw him off. And he basically, I don't think he could even function anymore. So the
way he described it, it was like his superiors took one look at him and said, "You don't look like a person that's ready to go into battle. You look like a person that's just coming out of battle." And they just released him from the Marines, and he was, you know, because it was just too much. All of his friends died in one moment, you know, before they even got started, practically.
You know, which brings us to this other point. Like sometimes these deaths inspire us. And sometimes these people are just there maybe to inspire us and bring us to another level of our own devotion, of our own inner reflection. But imagine how ripe you are. We talk about this puncturing the romance of the material world. What could do that more than all of your best friends dying at once? Where
And
are you going from there? And then you're so ripe to hear this, like a spiritual message that everything is temporary. We're going to have to lose everything that we're holding on to. You know, only love is real. Only our connection with God. Oh my God. What a
and
Monday. Happy Monday, everybody.
what
It's
you
to sound
know,
depressing, but it should be lifting me up. And
I
it's
don't
just
think
like,
it sounds depressing at all.
you know, it's my cat. My cat, my
Yeah, yeah.
everything is, you know, it's like,
Well, the reason that I brought him up particularly here is because Maharaj Pariksit, he was this person that was so serious about his life and his devotion. And when it came time for him to die, all these sages appeared, right? And similarly, I see that you know, okay, that's Bhagavatam, and that's some story about some king. I don't know, maybe he's in like a mythical king, and maybe there's a whole mythical story, whatever. I look at this and I say, here's this young lady who wasn't a famous king or anything like that, but when it came time for her to die, the sage, you know, and even there's COVID, right? But he you know, through you know, virtually, you know, that, I don't know if it's through Zoom or whatever, but he stayed there and did kirtan for her in the last hours of her life up till her last breath. Now this person, you know, like if I had to pick, you know, someone from this whole earth, you know, to be there at the time of my death, he would be way up, very, very high on the list, you know. And he's a person that's got thousands of disciples. You know, he's got all kinds of services to do and all kinds of responsibility, you know, like all kinds, you know, all kinds of, he does huge, massive programs with thousands of people. And he dropped everything and appeared to her. You know, the sage came to her, just like Maharaj Pariksit, the sages came to him. He came to her with fixed in his heart that I want to do everything that I can for her so that she'll leave this world in an elevated state of consciousness. And to me, that just tells me more about her glories, you know, his as well as hers. You know.
there were also many other saintly demigods, kings, and special royal orders called Arunadiyas, a special rank of Raja Rishis.
Special kind of sages.
From different dynasties of sages. When they all assembled together to meet the emperor, he received them properly and bowed his head to the ground.
Prabhupada
After
in the
all-
commentary says, the system of bowing the head to the ground to show respect to superiors is an excellent etiquette. And this is the nice part, which obliges the honored guest deep into the heart. Right? When you do these things actually with feeling, they communicate, they transmit, you know.
You know, we had that realization this weekend because in teacher training, when we wake up, we go into the yoga studio and we bow down. And at first, you know, I walked in and I was like, oh, I'm not going to bow down. I'll just give a little head nod. But when everyone was bowing down, I was like, I'm bowing down. There's something about actually physically getting on your knees and putting your head to the floor that is so much more superior than just like nodding or doing namaste. Even though I get it, it's a ritual, but there's a reason why these rituals, it's like putting yourself low. It's a very powerful thing. What it does is sheds part of your ego. If you've ever had to bow down at Radhakund or Govardhan Hill or in India, when you're sort of like, in one sense, you're like in a village in the street and you're laying your body on the ground and people are walking by and doing life and you're bowing. It sheds a little piece of the ego that you're here on the street. And if this whole game we're playing is to sort of like shed that ego, it's a very, very powerful tool because you're putting yourself in the lowest of all places, the very floor.
Yeah. So much of yoga is about engaging the external to affect the internal. Right. So I engage the external, I engage my body, I take my head, I bring it down to the ground. But that physical posture assists, you know, in where your own mind and heart get situated. You know, and I think as Prabhupada saying here is that when a genuine person sees someone bow down to them, that right to their very heart, they feel obliged to that person. You know, if it's done with sincerity.
After all the rishis and others had seated themselves comfortably, The king, humbly standing before them with folded hands, told them of his decision to fast until death. The fortunate king said, "We are the most grateful. We are the most grateful of all the kings who are trained to get favors from the great souls. Generally, you sages consider royalty as refuse to be rejected and left in a distant place." So the sages look at kings as these guys are not so serious about their spiritual life. They're just into stuff of the material world and position, and with that comes ego. And therefore, generally, the sages are not interested. But they saw someone special here. He was a king, but he was actually a very connected king, a saintly king.
Prabhupada writes, and the commentary writes, by advanced knowledge in spiritual realization, the transcendentalist knows that this beautiful material world is nothing but a shadowy reflection of the reality. Right? I love it. Anyway, that's a whole topic that we've gone into before. But you know, I also thought when I read this that we heard from Guranga. We interviewed Guranga Das yesterday.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
And he spoke of how Raghunath Swami, another sage, right?
They're sages. They're modern day sages, like out of the pages of the Mahabharata.
Yeah. And so Raghunath Swami, you know, you see what we're talking about in this verse is there's two categories of people that have adopted two different stages in life. There's these sages who've renounced everything. And there are these kings who embrace all this material opulence. They have different roles in society, right? It was considered that the king would live in the palace and wear the, you know, the royal clothes and have this opulence. And that was accepted for them. It actually kind of served their purpose of being the king, you know. People would feel that a certain reverence towards them, and the externals would serve that reverence. And if that was all engaged in the right way, it would be good for everyone. But for a sage, they're saying, I'm letting all of that go. I don't even want to get near that. But, and so a verse like this, although it's meant to illustrate the humility of the king, someone could read it. And this is where like the kind of the weaknesses of religion, or where religion can go wrong, you know, and feel superior. Remember when we said, what Guranga Prabhu said, Raghunath Swami said, was what does someone really have to renounce? They have to renounce the feeling of being superior to others.
Yeah, that was a good one, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so someone could take this verse and say, yeah, well, I'm not one of those guys. I'm superior to them. But the care that he took in that ashram of monks to be really clear, like, in other words, the pains taken to make it very clear that, hey, if you want to be a monk in this ashram, we don't tolerate any kind of negativity towards married people or towards ladies, or we're here to cultivate humility and service. We're not here to cultivate some attitude of superiority to others. And so if you're going to speak in this way, we're going to ask you to leave. So just to be, you know, abundantly clear. So, you know, people can take the verses of Shastra, the verses of these texts, and misinterpret them or interpret them in such a way where it reinforces one's illusion. One has to be careful about that. And to me, that's a great example of a wise person showing, let's take out of this what we're meant to understand, and let's not misconstrue it to actually strengthen our illusion, you know, our ego.
Okay, we're on text
14.
14. Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of both the transcendental and mundane worlds, has graciously overtaken me in the form of a Brahman's curse.
Seeing the curse as a blessing.
Seeing it all as divine. How many times do I have to read this to get it?
You know,
Like, when's it going to just click and sink in? Don't you get it, Raghunath?
You do, though. That's the thing. You know.
I don't know if I do.
No, you do. It's even you see the fact. This is the way spiritual life is, right? Is that the more that you understand it, in one sense, the more self-critical one becomes in such a way that it motivates them. Not that it immobilizes them, but that it motivates them, you know? So even though you're very much embody this kind of thing, you think because to whatever extent you don't, now seems like a really big thing, and that's just further advantageous for you to, and all of us, I think, here to dedicate oneself.
The personality of Godhead, the controller of both transcendental and mundane worlds, has graciously overtaken me in the form of a Brahman's curse. Due to my being too much attached to my family life, the Lord, in order to save me, has appeared before me in such a way that only out of fear I will detach myself from the world. So this isn't a poo-poo on family,
Right.
or on the potency of family. But with family comes everything that comes with it. It becomes stuff, my home, my car, my things, my children. Now, as I can chop away, well, what's more important, my children, my car, my children? What's more important? As we get to people are more important. But the idea is that in this world, there's just us and God. And even the people that are very dear to us are there to assist us in our path. Sometimes even the people that aren't dear to us are put in our, people that drive us crazy are put in our path to assist us for that growth. And therefore, here he is. He was immersed in that life. And then due to this curse, he realizes, okay, this is it. In the same way, if I said, okay, I know I'm going to die tomorrow, it's going to make me radically change what I do tonight. So it's one of these things that when you get the blessing of this Brahman's curse, or to be known that you're going to die, or maybe some chronic illness, although death can come at any second for any one of us, no matter what age we're at, it is that that alarm clock going off. Hey, time to get very, very serious. Let go of these things that you're attached to. They're not yours anyway. You don't own anything here. And get really focused on who you are and where you're going. So in that sense, to that degree, he saw his family life and everything he was attached to as, now it's time. I did my dharma in this world, and now it's time to just relinquish.
No, I mean, that's a great point. And that's, again, another example where we shouldn't misconstrue what's being presented here. It's interesting because when you think of what this culture, Bhagavatam culture, Maharaj Parikit's culture, today someone would say, family here is being understood as like, that's where I found my material enjoyment in life. Whereas like today, somebody's saying, I was too attached to sex and drugs and rock and roll and, cocaine and whatever, so it would be like all these things. It's saying like, because within family life, there's sexuality, because within family life, there's the affection of one's children and the opportunity to misidentify that these are my children and these are my possessions. And with the family, that also implies the home, the wealth, the possessions, all of that kind of stuff. And he's saying, I was too attached to that, right? And so we shouldn't think that it's saying that you should hate your family or that people, family people are lesser than the renunciates. But it's just saying that more or less he was saying, I had material attachments.
Prabhu, can I take a diversion and tell the story of Maharaj Citraketu?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I take that little diversion?
Take the diversion, right?
And I told it yesterday to the trainees, but it was sort of relevant, and it's relevant today. Because in spiritual life, in material life, we're in it. We're in with all our issues and the stuff and the pressing things. And the Bhagavatam is here to assist us to zoom out and see some greater picture. So there was a king who really wanted a child. He had 2 wives, and neither of them could get pregnant. And so they, nowadays they have fertility tests. Back then they had great sages who could give you with certain pujas and mantras, assist you to have a child. Still happens today. And so they went to the sage and he said, listen, I really need a son for an heir to the throne. I'm childless. It's like I'm ruining my whole family line. And the sage said, well, here's the deal. it doesn't seem like it's meant for you to have a son. He pleaded with him, and then he said, okay, listen, I can arrange that you have a son, but I want you to know ahead of time that this son will be the greatest cause of your misery as well as the greatest source of your joy. Now, hearing that, do you still want this son? He said, yes, of course, I want the son, please, of course. And so, sure enough, they do this thing where they make this payasan, or like almost like a rice pudding, right?
Yeah.
Put it on the fire, chant mantras into the rice pudding, give it to one of the queens. So one of the queens drank it, and that queen got pregnant. And this child was born. And it was incredibly auspicious. The father was filled with joy. The mother was filled with joy. The baby was filled with joy. The citizens were filled with joy. Everybody was so joyous. They developed a bosom friendship as the child grew. And it was just like so much joy. Everybody had joy except for one person. And that was the other queen. Because she felt like, wait a second, I'm not in this love triangle here with the kid and the wife. And she felt bitter and hurt and neglected. And you know what we do generally when we're upset? We find other friends to get around and see, yeah, I feel like crap and I feel horrible, and we commiserate with people. By the way, the people who commiserate with you oftentimes aren't your real friends. They're just stirring up the gossip and stirring up the resentment and stirring up the envy. The real friend, I've got like Mara and Kaustubha here. I go to them, I'm going through something, they just share with me something. Share with how to put my head back on straight. That's the type of friendship we need in our life. But all of her maids and assistants were just stirring. Yeah, it's this kid that has caused all the problems. And so one of them said, hey, I think he can solve all your problems if we just got rid of the kid. And they thought, what do you mean get rid of the kid? We'll kill the kid. They'll never know it happened. I had this way to make a poison that can kill the kid, and no one will even know it's us. We'll come off scot-free. And sure enough, they poisoned this 11-year-old boy, and he died. And the father came home, seeing the boy resting there. He's like, son, come up, let's go play some cricket. Just made that up. I didn't play cricket. But let's go. And after a while, he saw his son not moving and not doing anything, and he started to shake him, and the son was devastated. If you can imagine a father's pain of seeing a child dead. They said there's nothing greater than a parent losing a child. And he was just wailing, and people came in the room, and the wife came in, and everybody's crying. Everybody's upset. And then the sage came in. And when he saw the sage, he remembered what the sage said. And he looked at the sage and he said, oh my God, I know you told me this. This child was the greatest source of my joy. And now I've never felt the pain I am feeling in my heart, ever. And he looked at the sage and he said, but I just never got to say goodbye. Is there any way possible you can bring back this child, even for a moment, so I can say goodbye to him? And the sage closed his eyes and he thought, this isn't normal, but the soul has not officially left. I can do it for a moment. And so sure enough, please. And then all of a sudden, the boy who was sitting as if dead started to blink his eyes and move his fingers. And the father went to the son and grabbed him by the hand. He said, my son, it is me, your father. And the boy laying almost like bewildered, Father? Father? Yes, it is me, your father. I'm here. I'm by your side. And he started to sit up. Father? Father? And he looked at him in the face, and they had this loving glance, and the father was overwhelmed with joy. And the son said something that was a little devastating. He said, Father, I've had millions of fathers. Which one are you? So when we hear this story, we're moved by a father's love and the connection and that broken heart when the father loses a child. But the Bhagavatam takes us back and zooms us out to like an aerial view of reality. That's not actually your father. You've had millions of fathers. I've had millions of children. We've had millions of different relationships. And in the thick of the thin, I'm seeing all this as mine. And these relationships are, I mean, come on. We even know in this life, relationships are temporary. We've had long-standing friendships, marriages, dating, and they're over. They're like a dream right now. And so here it is, zooming out. I understand that even in this lifetime, I don't own my kids. I don't own my wife. I don't own this house. Everything is on loan to me. There's been other families. Isn't that weird to think? There's other families have been living in your house thinking that this was my house. They had babies there. They might have died there. Then a family was there before them. You have an old house. It could have been many, many families hanging out in your house thinking this is my place. And everything, we lose everything like that. And what are we actually? We're just a spirit soul floating around, renting out different apartments, coming in contact with people, falling in love, getting our heart broken. But we have one real relationship. And the Bhagavatam is pushing us again and again. Remember that relationship. That's what's real. All this other stuff is good, especially if it helps you evolve. But ultimately, there's one relationship, and that's the relationship we're here to reconnect with. The name of that reconnection is called yoga. Thank you very much. My name is Raghunath Das. Good story, isn't it? Zooming out.
So many great stories there in Bhagavatam. It's a very good story. Thank you.
Text.
You know, let's read 15 and 16 together.
Okay.
This would be a nice way to end today's show. These two verses, Parik's going to reveal his priorities at this time, right? When a lot of people will be confused, a lot of people will be fearful. Let's hear exactly where his head's at. This is how he sees his priorities in life in these two verses.
Text 14. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller...
15.
I'm sorry. Yeah. 15 to 16, okay. O Brahmanas, just accept me as completely surrendered soul, and let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, also accept me in that way, for I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bird or whatever magical thing the Brahman created bite me at once. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu. Again,
16, yeah.
Offering obeisances unto all you Brahmanas, I pray that if I should take again my birth in the material world, I will have complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna, association with his devotees, and friend relations with all living beings. Yeah. What a great way to pray, huh?
Yeah, so let's look at this, you know. He's saying in text 15, he turns to all these sages. These are people that he respects, right? These are people that throughout his life he consciously cultivated a relationship of respect with. And he's saying to them, please accept me as a completely surrendered soul, right? That I've given up the ideas of trying to make myself the central controller of this world. I've given up the resistance, you know, to the fact that there's a supreme center and root to all existence, and that it's not me. I don't want to be that anymore. I've surrendered, you know. So he's saying, please accept me as someone who's given up all, you know, surrender. The definition of the word surrender means to abandon oneself entirely to a powerful emotion or influence. And he's like, you know, particularly at the end of life, we should come to that place of complete surrender, you know, complete surrender. And he's saying, and may this holy river, the Ganges, accept me in that way as well, you know. And he's saying, why? Because I've completely, he says, Drita Chittam Ishe, the Isha, the Supreme. I've Drita Chittam. I've taken the Lord completely into my heart. Right. It's not mixed with other things in my heart anymore. You know, that's, you know, other priorities aren't there. Other desires aren't there. There's one desire now, you know, that Lord is sitting in my heart entirely. And then he says, his fearlessness. Let anything external happen. This snake bird, right? No one wants to get bit by a snake. No one wants to see.
What to speak of a snake bird?
A snake bird, a big flying snake.
Big flying snake? That's like No way.
I don't like a murder hornet. What to speak of a,
The only thing worse is if it was like a flying slug. They're a little gross and slimy. Snakebird slug.
so,
How more gross could this thing get?
yeah. So he's like, in all seriousness, he's like, there's nothing that I'm afraid of now. I've given my life to God. I have no fear, and then he says, and what does he want these sages to do? He says, Gayata Vishnu Gataha. Just please continue singing the glories of Lord Vishnu. What is more important? What else are we wasting our time with in this life? I've got this limited time left. All I want to hear is the glories of Lord Vishnu. And then he says, and say I don't achieve this situation where I become free of the material world. Say I come back, I take another birth in this world. That's okay too. This is what bhakti is, right? Those that are approaching God or religion or spirituality for the things of this world, they're very concerned about these, exactly, if I come back again, I want to come back on the higher planets. I want to come back with greater wealth. I want to come back in a better material position. That's a Vedic concept.
Right.
Or there's the concept of mukti, that I want to escape this world entirely. I want to be free from the influence of this world and find peace. But because he's on the level of bhakti, whether he doesn't want the things of this world, he's not even interested necessarily in escaping this world. This is what he wants. If I come back, this is all that I ask for, that I have complete attachment unto Lord Krishna, right? That's called yoga, right? Connection, union. Wherever I am, in this world, in the spiritual world, I just want that union. I just want that yogic connection. It's called, he says, Bhagavat yanante ratihi. I want attachment to Bhagavan. And then he says, prasangas chatad ashrayeshu. I want association with those who have taken shelter of him. I want association with devotees. And then he says, and then beautifully he says, maitriyastu sarvatra. And I want friendly relations with every living being. I don't want to be in competition with other living beings. I don't want to be battling for the resources with other living beings. I want to have God situated so deep in my heart. I want that connection with him so deep by the mercy of his devotees, by their example, by following their example, that I'm not at odds with any other living being. I simply wish them well. I simply want to be their friend. I want friendly relations with every living being. And when I look at an example of this, coming back at the end, coming back to this person that I didn't know, but who I, just by hearing from others about, I can see, it seems to me like, a person that just had friendly relationships with everyone, that she wasn't, out there, like most of us out there, battling with others, with our resentments towards others, and others resenting us. But because they have Krishna in their heart, all right, they can actually approach the entire world with a genuine mood of friendship. And in that state of consciousness, our mind's not distracted. In that state of consciousness, we're not constantly have a mind full of anxiety, but we have a mind and a heart that can accept Krishna fully. And we can leave this world surrounded by the sages, fully surrendered, letting go of everything, and enter into that deep stage of bhakti, which is the very goal of life, wherein our true nature of divine love is recovered, is restored. So what a beautiful example of this nice
We have the
Bhakti-yogini.
We have the story we're reading. We have the living example. And we have our Makeover Monday, so we can have an auspicious leaving ourself.
Yeah.
Well, these stories aren't,
Yeah.
it's not feel good morning Monday, but it's deep, thoughtful. We're going to have a deep, thoughtful week. What do you think about that?
Well, you know how the week continues.
The week continues. Tomorrow is a very, very auspicious day. It's Lord Krishna's appearance.
Yeah.
Celebrated all over India, all over the world. Krishna Janma, or Krishna's appearance on the Ashtami, the 8th day of the moon. Very exciting. So
And who will be our special guest?
Raghunath Swami at 9 a.m.
9 a.m. Eastern time, special time tomorrow.
I'm so excited.
Take today, prepare your mind for tomorrow. Right?
Saskia says in Germany it's on Wednesday.
That's okay.
That's okay. We're going to celebrate tomorrow. We're going to prepare you, Saskia.
So prepare yourself today for tomorrow. Get your mindset for tomorrow or the next day.
A nice thing to do is read about the appearance of Krishna ahead of time and how the demigods petition Lord Vishnu to descend. Make tomorrow a little sacred. Make for yourself.
Exactly.
Make tomorrow a little sacred. If you want to fast till noon, you can. You can fast till midnight if you can, or you can just spend a little extra time reading or chanting or going for a walk or in prayer. But these holy days are meant to bring out a little bit more focus. Jai Shri Krishna Bolo Jai.